There was a great philosopher that I followed in my college and high school days, and his name was Scott Stapp, and he was the lead singer of the band Creed. And he wrote a song about affirmative action, and, Scott Stapp, you might like him, you might not like him, I don't know how you feel, that's not what this is about. But I can't imagine he's a huge intellectual. Maybe he is. I don't know. It's hard for me to say when he writes such catchy songs such as One Last Breath and Higher and My Sacrifice. All of these are fantastic songs. But in his song about affirmative action, he talks about how it might be justified. Let me read you a few of the lyrics from that amazing song. He says, affirmative may be justified. Take from one, give to another. The goal is to be unified. Take my hand. Be my brother. Poetry. The payment silenced the masses sanctified by oppression. Unity took a back seat, sliding further into regression. Now that is very wise because he's saying this is a well-intentioned kind of thing. Unity is the goal. We all want unity. But then he says that it actually, unity takes a back seat when you take from one and give to another. And I very much agree with that. It slides further into regression, is what he says. Let me read you the second verse. He says, society is blind by color. That's how it should be. But then he says, why hold down one to raise another? I agree. He says, discrimination is now on both sides. Seeds of hate blossom further. You see what's going on here? Affirmative action is very well intentioned. We want unity. We want goal. The goal is unity. But then because, you're holding down one to raise the other, you're holding down the majority culture to raise the minority culture, instead of just giving them even footing, the seeds of hate, the seeds of contempt and suspicion, they actually grow. They blossom further, he says. It's poetry, I'm telling you. And then he says this. He says, this is very prophetic, I would say. He says, the world is headed for mutiny when all we want is unity. We may rise and fall, but in the end, we'll meet our fate together. That truer words have not been spoken. I think, and I'm being serious here, Scott Stapp is onto something. Affirmative action, well-intentioned, it sounds good, sounds very compassionate and loving, but it ends up being a disaster. And we talked about how Matt Chandler is promoting affirmative action in his pastoral hiring practices. He decides to take a lesser qualified person that has a darker shade of skin than a better qualified person to be his pastor at his church that has a lighter shade of skin. It's really the skin that's very important to Matt Chandler.
One of the firms that's helping us find men said, let me ask you a question, Pastor Matt. If we find an Anglo 8 and an African American 7, which one do you want? I said, I want the African American 7. And he said, what if we find an Anglo 8 and an African American 6? And then I said, then give me the Anglo 8, because the African American 6 will look and feel to our people like the kind of tokenism that I'm preaching against.
Hey everyone! Come and see how good I look!
And that's affirmative action. And that is the biblical sin of partiality. Okay, when you're partial to someone for ridiculous reasons like that, skin color, ethnicity, whether they're rich or poor, things like that, that is a sin. God says you can't do that. You cannot show favoritism to a rich man, but you also cannot show favoritism to a poor man. And I think we can make the application that you cannot show favoritism to someone who's in the majority culture, and likewise, you cannot show favoritism to someone who's in the minority culture. It works the same way. It's all partiality, and it's a sin. And it's not really that surprising that affirmative action will lead to more division, and it will actually lead to more problems, the way Scott Stapp has so heroically come out and said. And it's no surprise because God won't let it. You see, here's the thing. God will not bless you breaking his law, his holy, righteous, moral law. He will never bless that. In fact, the Bible talks about there's blessings for obedience and curses for disobedience. And so Matt Chandler's little affirmative action plan will cause disaster for his church. God won't, it's not magic. It's not just that I've run the numbers and I've decided that affirmative action is not going to work. It's not just that I just think we're too racist for affirmative action to work. No, it's not that. It's that God will not bless it. God will not bless you breaking his holy law. If you are showing partiality to someone who has a darker shade of skin, then that will never give you the positive result you're looking for. God won't let it. God won't let the world go topsy-turvy like that. He will not bless disobedience to his law. You must obey his law. So if you want to have a darker skinned pastor, if that's a goal of yours, I would recommend getting on your knees and praying to God, Lord, send me a qualified person that meets my ethnic requirements. I'm not so sure God will answer that prayer because it's a wrong prayer, but at least you won't be showing partiality. At least you won't be sinning in order to accomplish what you think is a good thing. You can't sin your way out of sin. I know you're trying to correct discrimination. I know you're trying to do that, but you will never correct a discrimination with more discrimination. It doesn't work that way. God won't let it. You can't. There's not a single sin in the Bible that you can say to me, well, I'll do this and God will bless it. It doesn't work that way.
Hey everyone! Come and see how good I look!